Strobe distance. Another way to make the strobe brighter or dimmer, to change the exposure, is by changing the distance of your strobe to your subject. And this is something that we're going to get into a lot more in depth when we get to the inverse square law. But for now, just know that the further the light is from the subject, the dimmer that it's going to appear. And then the closer it is to the subject, the brighter it will appear. I often refer to light like a bucket of water. So if you take a bucket of water and you're really close to your subject, most of it's going to hit your subject. They'll be very wet, or in terms of lighting, very, very bright. Now, if you back up, take that same bucket of water and throw it, it has time to disperse, and not as much is going to reach them. Some of it's going to be wasted, so they won't be as wet. Or in the case of light, they're going to be a little more dimly lit. Let's take a look at this concept in the studio. I've got my camera set to 1/200th of a second, f8, and ISO 100. So I'm going to use that as a starting point, and then we're going to see how moving my light changes and affects the exposure. So let me grab that as my starting point. All right, so now I know that if I move the light in closer, it's going to make the exposure look brighter. And if I move the light further away, it's going to make the exposure look darker. There are mathematical equations to this, and we're actually going to cover that later on. But now simply, I just want you to understand the concept that if you need to control your exposure, one other way you can do it is by moving your light. So I'm going to start by darkening my exposure a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by backing my light up further than the original starting point. So let me back it up a few feet. Let's try around here. Grab a quick shot. And you see that the picture gets much dimmer. Now I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to bring the light in much, much, much closer to the subject. There. And this brightens up the exposure significantly. Of course, we can get we're actually a lot more technical and mathematical with all this, and we're going to take a look at it more carefully for exactly how this works with things like the inverse square law in future videos. So for now, further dimmer, closer brighter.